Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Hope things are going okay. Hope these books are finding you in the right place. I hope you're learning a lot. I'm sure doing a lot of reading these days, and I'm trying to set up a goal every single day to read for at least an hour, maybe more, depending on how the day goes. We all get kind of bogged down with things, but I think that you got to time manage yourself throughout the day to kind of make yourself more effective and efficient. And that's probably what you should be doing every single day because you'd be surprised what you can do in about a month, 2 months, a year, 2 years, and longevity more than that. And you will see that it pays off. So, I have a good book for you. It's really about something about motivation again, but it's also about reaching your limits. So, it's called On the Edge, and it's by Allison Levin. Levin, I think that's how you would say that. And this is a New York bestseller. This is written around 2013 or 14. Um, and it's not a really lengthy book. It's probably about maybe 170 pages. It's about 170. And it talks a lot about what Allison did. She is I think you can actually research her. She has a website about this, and she's a leadership expert. She's also a mountain climber, and she actually teaches people how to mountain climb. And she has climbed Mount Everest a few times in the book that she explains. And on her way up, she kind of tells us about the difficulties, about different stages up Mount Everest. I don't know if I'm ever going to climb Mount Everest because what I read from her, and also that's a lot on a person. And if you're going to ever climb a mountain like Mount Everest, just be careful because there's not a lot of oxygen up there and you can freeze and you pretty much take your life in your hands. So yeah, it's 29,000 feet up in the air. So it's the highest mountain. So, the Mariana Trench is actually 6 miles. So it's actually a lot more deeper, or I should say, if you were to flip it around, it's a lot more higher than Mount Everest, by the way, the Mariana Trench, and the Pacific. So look that up. It's kind of interesting, but it's one of the deepest places in the world in the ocean. But let's go ahead and talk about this book here. So in the book, it says we are all in a position to proactively work towards having a positive effect on the people around us. And and she's a mountain climber, and she has lead people, and you are kind of like the leader of that group. You want to make sure that you take care of them, and hold them in your hand. And as you're climbing or leading, whatever you're doing there, you make sure they're looking up to you in a way because they're more experienced, and you have to have proper preparation. That's included in physical and psychological. So, if you want to be a leader or if you want to be a role model, you want to be somebody an influencer. We have a lot of influencers these days, and a lot of it takes a lot of psychological and a lot of physical endurance to make sure that you are up to that challenge, because you have to live up to a representation too, in a representation, and also who are you throughout life? Because you become a role model in a way, or you become somebody that looks up. So, for example, the president, the Senate, the people that work in the offices, they're they're behind the scenes, but when they come out on the camera, they're the ones that you're hearing from because you voted for them. So they're kind of like our leaders, right? But it takes a lot more than that. And people that are influencers on TV, or the Kardashian trends. I think I said that right. Kardashian trends. Ooh, that's something I don't say right. But those are people that you kind of look up to because they're just almost not like a soap opera, but some people I like their products they're selling. Anyway, it's a lot of psychological. But what she says in this book is that it takes a lot of mindset to be in that moment. And so in the book, she talks about Alaska, or Alaska's mountain, McKinley, and this Alaska is the corner state of the United States, and it's about 20,000 feet up in there, and it's the highest peak in the North America. So think about 20,000. That's the highest peak in North America. And then you're dealing with, when you're up that far in the altitude, that you start to get low on oxygen. Your brain starts to not function correctly because oxygen is, it needs for your brain, it needs for you to operate because you need red blood cells. That's what the thing is. When you have low oxygen, red blood cells are not circulating through your brain. So you're not getting that fresh blood. And so you're kind of, your abilities start to slack. You're not thinking. So you have a lack of oxygen, and you have what we call altitude sickness. That's what it is. It's called altitude sickness. So you start to not feel so well and act well. And so it takes a lot of practice and to go up that far. And it's a gradual thing too, by the way. So sometimes we need to kind of go backwards for a little bit to rethink things and to reorder our thinking, and sometimes to strengthen our mind that way. So she's talking about climbing this mountain, preparing these people for this adventure that a lot of them haven't been on before. And when you're preparing for an adventure like that, especially something that's 29,000 feet, lack oxygen, you can pretty much die at any time because you can freeze to death or fall. And it's amazing that how many people have died on climbing Mount Everest. It's just sickening. Well, I don't want to say sickening. Well, it depends on your view of life. But you take your life in your hands. But it's that mental preparation for that challenge. So for any challenge, if you think about it, and it takes a lot of progress to get there. You can't just jump in the river without any preparation. You got to know how to swim. And that's part of the problem, is that you got to prepare yourself without just thinking, I can do it. I'm just going to go ahead and do it without no training. And I think a lot of times we're in a hurry and we don't have time to gradually climb or mentally prepare ourselves. And that's how you get nervous. That's how anxiety gets in, because you're getting into it fast and you're uncomfortable with it because it's something that's new. So that you have to value the people that you are with as well. So when she's climbing this, Allison in the book here, Allison climbing this mountain, is that she's trying to prepare these people for this adventure, and it takes a lot of telling the truth and eye contact, and how you have to be on time. You got to strategize your timing, because when you're climbing up, in the book she was talking about it's timing, and if you don't hit it at exactly spots, is that it's not gonna be well. So like for example, the wind pressure, not wind pressure, but the wind speed, the daylight hours run short there. You got to be very careful in the cold. But it takes a lot of teamwork too. Even though that you're a leader leading people, you also have to depend on them to help you out too, to have your back. And that's part of it. It's a lot of collaboration. And it takes time to get to this. It takes a lot of history, and it also takes a lot of experience. So it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of oxygen too. So, fear is just a feeling. It's never going to kill you unless you want it to kill you. Fear is a powerful motivator. For example, it says, we have peer pressure. When you're young, you get peer pressure. Sometimes when you get peer pressure from your friend. Says, try this drink, try this jump, try this drug, try going out with this person, or try this jump off your bicycle or something like that. And you have a lot of peer pressure. We do that throughout life. And that's fear. And sometimes you have to be a little bit logical, but when you're young, you don't really have a lot of things figured out yet. Sometimes when you're an adult, some adults don't have it figured out either, and they just go to peer pressure with their friends. So even if the ground feels solid, it doesn't mean you can relax, because as soon as you are comfortable, everything will shift again. Ooh, I love this in the book. She says, even though that you're on solid ground, it doesn't mean that you can relax, because as soon as you are comfortable, everything will shift again. That means you can sit there or stand there and feel good, but sometimes unexpected things happen. And you got to prepare for that, just like an adult. Even though you're 18, means that you're an adult, you have everything figured out. Maybe you're rich, you have everything figured out. Maybe you're in midlife, you have everything figured out. You're all relaxed. Things are unexpected gonna come up, and that's how that's how life is. Yeah, you can be comfortable with stuff like that. I'm comfortable, I think, but there's things that come up unexpectedly, and you just don't understand. Maybe a death in the family, maybe a bill that you forgot, maybe an environmental abstract. It just doesn't matter. Health. It's so crazy. But you got to be mentally comfortable with that, and also you have to kind of expect it sometimes. But most people, no matter how talented or skilled they are, will find themselves in a position where one or most of their skills don't measure up to them. So she was talking, Allison in the book, she was talking about, climbing this mountain, and she has known people that were much better than her, and they have climbed this mountain before, and sometimes they died because of whatever conflicts. She was talking about somebody in the book that he was climbing, and he was an excellent climber, and he placed his foot somewhere and he fell to his death. And it just, imagine, you have all this skill going on things, you need an excellent preparation, and then one little slip, you're gone. And you might think that, oh my God, I don't want to ever do that. Well, in life, you're kind of that way too, because you can be the most powerful parent, you can be the most excellent teacher, you can be the most politician, you can be the most manager. What CEO, doesn't matter, but it only takes one little slip, and then your whole life could 180. And it's crazy. And how do you prepare for that? You don't. But you can, in a way, but you have to be very careful. And things happen. Prepare for that. And we all make mistakes, and it's okay to say sorry and forgiven. And don't put your life on the edge always. So value the contribution and compensate for others too. Compensate for others. What you want to make sure that they're okay. They're human too, if they're a team. So in the book, she says leaders are supposed to know what skills and equipment are needed to get the job done right. If you have one but not the other, you don't have the right skills to correct the equipment. So you can have all the equipment necessarily, but you have to know how to use it. And sometimes you don't. And that's part of life. And she's talking about this preparation, and what you do every day matters, including the way you think, the way you treat people, which is something we absolutely control. If you know how to treat people, you have control of that. Even when you lose your mind, well, when I say lose your mind, like let's say you get really angry, you still control your mind. If you get really happy, you can control your mind. You can be under the worst stress, you can control your emotions a little bit. And that takes a lot of discipline. And I have videos on discipline and stuff like that if you want to watch those. But that's something that you can control regardless of the environment that you're in. I really love how Allison said that, because it really makes that really easy to understand in this book. And if you think about who Phil Jackson is, Phil Jackson is a coach that taught Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and Shaq. So he has a couple of books out, Phil Jackson, but he trained these athletes And that's just the mental work that goes into teaching those people how to get that pressure and go into that basketball game, and how to deal with all that stress and anxiety and pressure of the audience watching it. If you mess up have a bad game, believe it, you are gonna pay for it a little bit. But it's what other people treat you too. What sometimes kindness. So he was trying to show that Phil Jackson was trying to show that if people are going to treat you with ugliness, reciprocate it and treat them with kindness, because it's how people. If somebody's attacking you, don't use the same weapon against them. Alternate it so you look like the better person. And I think they call it reciprocate. I think that's what you said, reciprocate. If you have a title like a doctor or a manager or a teacher or CEO or something or a police officer, those titles are meaningless. They are meaninglessly. They don't really say much in extreme environments when you're there on the line. So if you're on the line, if you're, there's a difference between theoretical versus practical. And if you have, and when the stuff comes up, when the heat of the moment comes up, we go into ourself, right? Sometimes we have to look around, but you kind of go into your flight mode, right? Your adrenaline happens, and you decide, oh my God, there's a earthquake or something like that, and you want to protect yourselves, and you don't care who's in the room with a title on. So you kind of have to have that sense of self-awareness of yourself too, even though that you might not be the manager or the person in charge. So you have, in order for that to happen, to get ready for that, you have to ask the right questions to get the right answers. And that's really tricky because you don't know how to prepare, and you want to ask the right questions because you might not have the idea or the thoughts behind that. It takes time. And it's really the loyalty and knowing your team, knowing the people that you work with, and being kind to other people too, that really affects. And we live in a narcissistic kind of society, or alone. We're all on the phones now, and it's really hard to kind of put that down and collaborate because those people are going to be with you. If you saw in recent book reviews, I talked about, you have to communicate effectively, and sometimes technology might go down or it might be in your way, but you still need to learn to communicate with your team. So, leaders have to trust their people to do the right things even though they are not being watched. We talked about this Hawthorne effect in other books reviews, and it's one of those things that when people are watching you, I got to know what to do here, and I'm going to work faster, I'm going to work diligently. But then when they're not there, you kind of do your thing. And, even when you feel like puking, you have to put a smile on your face and get the job done, because it is not just about you. It's about the people around you. Let me read that again. I really loved how Allison said in the book, when you feel like you're going to puke, you have to put a smile on your face because you got to get the job done. Because people is not just about you. It's about the people around you. So I guess what she's trying to say is that even though when you want to give up, don't give up. Even though that things are stressing you out, don't give up. Even when you are having a panic attack, don't give up. Think before you do. Think about what you have. Be aware and show good role modelship. So, people can tell what you're doing, though. People can tell your actions. And that's something that you got to be very aware. Even I have to be aware, because sometimes I go into my own brain too, and I have to think about what I'm doing, especially in my job, my career. So we look at things through harsh black and white lens sometimes. Not everything is black and white. There is some middle ground. And some people have to think about that too. You can get mad or you can get happy, but you can also be in the middle too. There's good, there's evil, but can there be a little bit of both? Or could there be some extreme? And you have to think about that. You have to give some people the benefit of the doubt too. So your chances of failure may increase when you're pushing yourself to an unfamiliar territory, but you can't let that defeat you. Sometimes we get uncomfortable because we don't know what we're up against. We haven't done it before. So here's an example. When I was at the Colorado River, which is the Grand Canyon. The Colorado River runs through the Grand Canyon. So this is in Arizona. So I was in Arizona and I was gonna get some rocks. I love rock collecting when I was a little kid, right? And so I would from the top, I would climb all the way down the bottom, and I would have some rocks in my pocket. Now, the experience was I had never done that before, and I was kind of by myself because my grandfather went with me, but he wasn't really in the shape of doing that. So I said, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And it took a long time, by the way. You had to judge that. I was very uncomfortable. I didn't know how to do that. And so I was probably around maybe 17 or 18 years old. Okay, so I was climbing down this Grand Canyon. You have to be very careful. There's snow on the top sometimes, and then it gets kind of warm at the bottom. And the Colorado River runs through it. And so you're climbing down, and you have to be really careful. You're setting. And I was uncomfortable about this. I'd never done this before. And so I did it, though. I came back, I did. I had some rocks, that I packed in my bag and stuff like that. Kind of nice. You can kind of see that on the line, the different rock formations. And so you climb up, and then you reach the top of this thing, and you're all finished. And you accomplish what you set out to do, and you feel really good about it. But at the top, I felt really nervous. Because I didn't know that terrain. I didn't know that I was going to slip. I didn't know if I was going to find myself. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was so uncomfortable, but I trusted myself just to be clear-headed, watch what I'm doing, and it worked out. And that's just one many examples of being uncomfortable. It's like speaking in front of a crowd. Yeah, you're uncomfortable. You don't do it very much. And then once you do it, you feel so much better. So that is very interesting. As she says that in her book, sometimes you're just uncomfortable territory. It's a new environment. And so of course you're going to have doubts, stuff like that. But try not to do that. Because in the end, you feel, I did it. I accomplished it. So it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. That's the figure of speech, by the way. So here's the summary of the book here. It says, climb a mountain like Mount Everest, which is about 29,000 feet, takes risk and oxygen and energy. But when you do it, it feels good. But sometimes it takes responsibility and conscientiousness to complete. So what that means is that you can have all the information possible, but you still got to breathe. You still have to have oxygen. You still have to put the energy in. And it does take some risk. But in the end of it, you can feel good about it because you did it. I think that's kind of what the book was trying to say and what Allison was trying to say as well. And you don't know what to prepare for, but you got to know your training and you have to gradually know yourself. And it takes time. And don't rush into things. Be patient. And we live in a fast-paced world, and we get information very quickly. But you have to understand, is that information accurate for you? Does it actually mean something? Is it truthful? And how can I use it? So, interesting book. It wasn't that expensive. Like I said, you can probably find it. I think I searched for it was like $4 on a thrift store or something like that. But it's a very good book. And I think that it's one of those stories that people should read too, because it doesn't talk about just the mountain climbing. It talks about, dealing with things in life. And it's really good. So hopefully that worked. And I'm hoping I see you in other videos. Have a good one.